Hey guys, and welcome to my pre-release analysis for Neve, Neve. As always, all of the information here is subject to change and has not been tested by myself, which means it is likely that once I test her out, there will be some things that I expect that won't be as good or will actually be better than I expect it to be. So make sure that you not only base your decisions on pre-release information if you are focusing on meta purposes. Treat this video more like a rough estimation and an open discussion on what you can expect from Neve. Because if there's one thing that we've learned from the previous characters, is that they make changes in the test servers quite often. Some more significant than others, but the changes are not so drastic to the point where it's like a totally different character. Neve's kit and how she functions as a character and what she brings to the team will be more or less the same when she gets released. And if there are any changes, it will most likely be for her number values. If you want a more accurate analysis on Neve, you can wait until my post-release analysis/review, where I will go over the changes that were made on her kit and the things that I got right in my pre-release analysis. With that said, let's now take a look at Neve. We are mostly going to focus on how her kit functions and what your teams will look like if you ever decide to incorporate her in your team compositions. She is an SR character that you will be able to max limit break for free just from the upcoming winter event. Neve will also be a burst type 3 shotgun user from the Tetra line of units, classified as an attacker with the water element. Neve being a burst type 3 character is good, because we only have 2 burst type 3 SR units, that being Rappi and Mihara. Rappi is a great option for new players, especially if you didn't manage to get a good SSR Burst 3 character early on. Mihara on the other hand is pretty bad, because it's very hard to stack the buffs from her skills, and she cuts your full burst time in half, which is not really that great outside of Isabel burst spam teams. But if you are someone who has been playing for a while now, and you probably have a handful of SSR burst type 3 characters to choose from, it's very unlikely that Neve will be considered to be a good replacement for most SSR main DPS, just because of the fact that she is an SR character which innately limits her stats. While yes, there are some exemptions where an SR character will still perform really well in later stages of the game. Neve is more of a selfish DPS, so you generally have better options from the SSR character pool for units who will be more versatile and have better scaling. You can of course still use her in your for fun teams, which is what I call the teams that are used for things like the limited time event stages, EX stages, and maybe even in the simulation room. Basically stages where you don't necessarily have to rely on the best of the best characters to be able to clear it. Moving on, let's take a look at her kit. Her skill 1 is pretty straightforward. Targets one enemy with the lowest HP and deals 145.45% of attack as damage, and this deals water type damage. This current scaling is actually pretty good, although we don't know the cooldown for this one yet. But if she gets released with anything close to this damage percent, then I would say that this skill is okay. Her second skill, Hibernation, activates when entering full burst. This basically gives her a pierce effect on her next 2 rounds, which means her next 2 normal attacks will go through the enemy and hit more targets if they are stacked on top of each other. And this also increases her attack by 124.8% for the next 2 shots. This will be good for stages with high enemy density, most likely in defense stages. A lot of enemies will group up inside the perimeter, so you will most likely hit a lot of enemies per shot with the help of the pierce effect. Her burst skill has a 40-second cooldown and has a water damage type. This increases the critical rate by 31.95% for 20 seconds, and this also increases her hit rate by 22.04% for 20 seconds. The critical rate is really good, and the increased hit rate will basically give her a smaller bullet spread, which will help you land more bullets on targets that are far away, making her not completely helpless when taking down relatively far away targets. With all that said, let's now get into her potential teams. Neve, being a burst type 3 attacker, basically means that you can throw her into any team formation with another burst type 3 attacker, that being a 1-1-3 or 2-1-2 team. She can sort of be like a fill option for 1-1-3 teams if your team mainly consists of long range characters. Then you can slot her in if you are on stages with more close range targets. On some rare occasions, you can also go for a 3-1-1 team, which is a more defensive formation, but typically, you would stick to the standard 1-1-3 or 2-1-2 teams. One example for 1-1-3 is a variation of the Isabel burst spam team. This team includes Litter, Dala, Isabel, Drake or Sugar, and Neve. If you have both Drake and Sugar, I would say that it's better to go for Drake just because of how good her skill 1 is on top of her personal damage. And if you don't have Isabel or don't really care about her burst spam or full burst reduction, you can take her out instead and keep Sugar, Drake, then slot in Neve. Next up, this will be a team for those who are fairly new to the game, or maybe you haven't had much luck in getting good characters for shotgun teams. This team will be a 2-1-2 formation with Neon, N102, Anise, Neve, and Rappi. These characters synergize well together, and if you have SSR characters that fill the same role as some of the characters on the list, you can definitely use them instead. Let's say you already got Privity from the Day by Day event, you can use her instead of Rappy. And maybe you have Senti, you can use her instead of Anise, so you will have better survivability. But I would say that you might want to keep Neon and N102 in the team, not unless you have Litter, which can be a good replacement for either one. Overall, Neve is more like a for fun character, and you can theoretically find success with her even if you don't really care about meta, which, if you are using her in your teams, there's a high chance that you are using her for other reasons. That's not to say that her kit is bad, there are just other options where you'll find better success in. With that being said, this has been my pre-release analysis for Neve, or however you pronounce her name. I will definitely follow up with a post-release review when she is available in the game. As always, if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.